Welcome to the WBZ Ion Weather Blizzard of 78 Winter Special.
It was a catastrophic, historic, and now infamous nor'easter. Storm Larry, as it was referred to in Connecticut, began Monday morning, February 5th, and continued through February 7th. Snowfall records were broken from Atlantic City to Providence to Boston as well, as this winter behemoth grew to extreme intensity. This historic storm would claim more than 100 lives, cause 4,500 injuries, and almost $2 billion of damage in today's money. Now, we've assembled the entire WBZ weather team to take a look back at the impact the blizzard had on New England, if such a thing could maybe happen again someday, and walk down memory lane with a former WBZ meteorologist. Plus, we'll check in with this year's outlook and what's expected for the second half of our winter season. Now, to start things off, it's wild to think that enough time has passed so that many might not even recall this storm. Now, for those who may not know the tale, and for those who remember every second of it, here's a look at what 78 looked like through the eyes of WBZ and our viewers.
A record winter storm with hurricane-force winds is causing serious problems all throughout southern New England.
Weather is miserable, the traffic is miserable. If you're inside, stay there.
We've got winds lasting for a long time. We have heavier snow lasting for a long time. And take the combination of the two and you have perhaps the worst winter storm we've ever had here in New England.
At the parking lot formerly known as Route 128.
And extremely high tide and hurricane-force winds have flooded dozens of homes, and thousands of homes are now in danger.
A storm that has only gained more notoriety with time, the blizzard of 78 is the benchmark storm for generations of New Englanders. The start of the bread and milk phenomenon, the first continuous weather coverage on local TV, and most importantly, the tremendous effect it had on the lives of countless people.
Governor Michael Dukakis is touring our snow-stricken area by helicopter.
The impact on the coastal communities is really devastating. We saw houses just smashed around like matchsticks, lumber all over the ground, seawalls broken up and now freezing.
The blizzard struck on a day where many went to work and school, thinking the talked about potential storm wouldn't pan out to be that bad. By the end of the day, it was a full-fledged disaster.
Shelby Scott is still snowbound.
Even WBZ's intrepid reporter Shelby Scott was trapped at home, unable to report from the blinding snow.
The heavy wind and the heavy snow are combining to make this potentially the worst storm ever to hit New England.
Not unlike many other powerful storms, it had humble beginnings as a weak area of low pressure off the Carolina coast. But in a matter of hours, it became a major nor'easter as polar energy plunged across the Appalachians and intensified the system.
The state of emergency will continue this evening and all day tomorrow.
What made the blizzard of 78 such a unique storm system? We had sharp polar energy that was diving down to the coast, captured the storm system. High pressure over eastern Canada, kind of blocking its path. And as it moved up south of Long Island, it stalled, did a loop, and then headed off toward the north and east. And it was this slow drifting motion that lashed New England with destructive waves, strong winds, heavy snowfall for nearly 2 straight days.
Senator Edward Kennedy is now on the phone from Washington. Senator Kennedy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Jack. I think we've got some helpful news from Washington. The president has signed the declaration proclamation, which makes Massachusetts a disaster area.
When it was finally over, the region was transformed.
Here it is, the morning after the great storm. The road is empty.
As you know, it is the day after the great storm and part of a time that we'll be talking about for probably many years to come. Many of us have been here for several days. We're running out of clothes and hope that this emergency is over soon.
The Chatham area where the water has broken through the Nauset Bar and North Beach in several areas, down by Coast Guard Beach, down in the Provincetown area, the tide came up higher than the Army engineers ever figured would ever happen once in 100 years. It happened yesterday.
A state travel ban did not happen again until 2013. The snowfall record in Boston fell in 2003. The tide record fell earlier this month. Other storms have destroyed homes, breached dunes, flooded streets, and trapped drivers. But for most, nothing will quite live up to the ordeal in early February of 1978. There was quite an uproar when it was declared that a blizzard in 2003 beat the snowfall record in Boston. Many still strongly believe that 78 is the king, and they refuse to accept it. But Danielle, a lot of storms bring feet of snow to New England. Very few bring this type of coastal destruction.
I mean, the destruction along the coast was unimaginable, and the memories still remain fresh in the minds of residents that went through it.
The blizzard of 78 is the first storm that ever did any major damage to the house. I mean, it totally wrecked the house.
Jim Barry was a teenager when the powerhouse storm hit New England and demolished parts of his family's home along Gun Rock Beach in Hull. His mother, Barbara, recounts the damage to their porch.
From underneath, the waves came and took it right off, the roof and all.
The Barrys say their neighborhood was a war zone.
3 houses over, there was a big family house, 4-family house, and that just totally fell into the water. They weren't allowed to build up again.
But the Barrys could and did rebuild. Jim's dad and uncles redesigned the porch, poured concrete, and spent the entire spring and summer of '78 hammering nails with their kids.
I'm sure if we hadn't done all this work, that storm the other day would have demolished the rest of the house.
This January's blizzard showed us that we can have flooding rivaling that from the blizzard of '78. In fact, the tidal gauges reached record levels on January 4th. The big difference in '78 was the duration of the storm, with flooding persisting for several high tide cycles.
We got a glimpse of what the future shoreline could look like with that storm.
Research geologist Erica Lenz warns that our coast will see more major impacts in the decades to come.
We could be looking at 11 feet of sea level rise if the Antarctic ice sheet collapse proceeds along the trajectory it's going.
Lenz says that some of the greatest sea level rise predictions across the entire country are for right here in the Northeast.
I don't think we're prepared at all, unfortunately. I think this is going to be a huge, multifaceted, very complicated problem. We have some time right now to have productive conversations, but it's much better to act now than it is down the line when we're facing some really dire circumstances.
For a home that's been in their family for nearly 80 years, the Barrys say no matter what happens, they'll build it back up again.
It's worth all the aggravation that you have to go through, because in between it's heaven.
So Eric, we can estimate what the flooding would be like today, given the surge from the blizzard of '78 and the sea level rise we've seen since then. This map is pretty eye-opening. Parts of Boston, you can see shaded in blue here, completely underwater. Really just a snapshot of how vulnerable both the city and our coastline in New England is if a storm like that were to happen again today.
It takes the right or wrong timing depending on your perspective, and we hope we don't have everything link up again.
Exactly.
All right, Danielle, thank you very much. And when we return, Pamela Gardner talks technology, now versus then. And Barry Burbank visits with former WBZ meteorologist Bruce Schwegler. The Eye on Weather Blizzard of '78 special returns right after this.